Hello everyone and welcome. Sit back, relax, make a cup of tea or whatever you like to drink and get ready for new stories from Yellowcat. Send your own favorite stories in the comments below and maybe they'll be in our new video. So subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed yet. Let's get started. Have you ever had a moment where you thought, I don't get paid enough for this S? What did you do? After serving 2 tours in Iraq, I got out of the Corps and enrolled in college. I got a job waiting tables because where else can you make $150 in 5 hours without a lot of training? The GI Bill helped me get a lot of things done. People treat servers like they're the scum of the earth, as anyone who has ever worked as a server will tell you. I worked for 3 years at the busiest Carrabba's Italian grill in the country. At table 12, I had a 4-top that pushed me to my limit. Background: the assistant FOH manager quit and the new BOH manager has just started. The store manager takes a week off after the new front desk employee has only been here for 1 day. This happened to her on the 3rd day. 4:15 p.m. The restaurant has its first few tables. Table 12, the 3rd-placed woman asks if the spicy lentil and sausage soup is spicy. I say yes. She says she'll still take it. I come back in about 3 minutes to see how things are going after serving the soup and salad. Everything's okay. After 5 minutes, they called me over to say that the soup was too spicy and they needed a new one. I do what they ask, but I let them know that the food will be ready soon. They tell me to wait to give her food until she finishes her new soup. I tell the new front of house manager to hold table 12 and go to the kitchen to get some minestrone soup. As I walk past the expo line with my soup, I see their food being brought out on trays. Again, I tell the FOH to hold the food because they aren't ready. As I'm waiting for my other table, I see the new BOH manager running food for table 12 just 60 seconds after I told them to hold it. Table 12 is mad at me and sends their food back. BOH says sorry and offers to pay for the dessert for the table. Right now, the table's mad and acting passive-aggressively in general. After the meal, when the leftovers are in the boxes, I ask if anyone still has room for dessert. They cut me off before I could finish to say that someone promised them dessert. I'd like to take a moment to talk about the restaurant for those who have been. It's impossible to describe how much food you get at Carrabba's. People often just split a meal there because the portions are so big. Each meal comes with bread, soup, or salad. I always thought it was strange for people to order dessert after a meal. There's just way too much food. A lot of the desserts are also served. The family of 4 can order 1 dessert and everyone will be happy with a few bites. Come back to table 12. That's why we're gonna buy POS 3's dessert. Her soup was very spicy. Even if they don't want dessert, she tells everyone at the table to order it. They should just take it home. They order 4 desserts and 3 of them are taken to go. I tell myself that I'm only gonna cut 1 of the 4 charges. As I hand over the check, I tell the new front of house manager to comp a dessert and let her know that she will soon be needed at table 12. Her eyes are interested as I walk away. They yell, "We need to see a manager," before I can even get up from the table. My neighbor at the next table has seen the whole thing and is asking me why we have to put up with such bad people. I didn't know what to say. As FOH manager walks up to the table, POS 3 says, "Desserts are on us tonight, and you only took off 1. I stay close by. There are 3 more on this. The FOH nods her head and says, okay. That was it, really. It drove me crazy that FOH didn't ask what was going on or stand up for me. She bent down and took it. I wasn't going to stand there and do nothing. Said to POS 3, regardless of how many desserts you thought the manager was going to comp, why do you feel like you should get any free? This is when my boss looks at me and says, shut up, and I tell him, F these guys. I'd already decided to quit, so I was gonna let off steam. I explained to you the spicy lentil and sausage soup was spicy, and you wanted it anyway. I think they were really upset. They were used to having people just take their crap. She stated, well, we just didn't have a great evening. I laughed and turned away. The people at my other table who saw this happen really felt bad for me. They asked what was going on, and I didn't think twice about telling them out loud while 12 people were still sitting there. They told me not to worry about it and that things would get better that night. I told them I agreed because I was leaving work early and going home after serving them. They told me not to quit because of them, but I don't think they know how often servers are treated badly. This table had 3 different checks. One woman, about grandmother age, left me a $120 tip on her $30 check, and the other 2 gave me an extra $20. I was out of there by 5:30 and had made more than $170. After the week was over, the store manager called me to talk about what had happened. I told them that a big part of the problem was that the 2 new managers wouldn't listen to me when I told them to hold the food and would help everyone. I quit the job for a good 3 months before I graduated from college, but I came back for 2 more years. I haven't worked as a waitress since. Now that I've written it all down, it doesn't seem that bad, but it was. Many people in my town think they have the right to treat service people badly because they were born with a silver spoon stuck in their mouth. People have snatched my arm, tugged at my apron and shirt to get my attention while I was talking to someone else and lied to me or a manager just to get something for free. They don't care that this is how you make money or that if you mess up too many times you could lose your job and your only source of income. Their lie could be the last straw that breaks the camel's back. You, table 12, were the last straw that night and it wasn't even happy hour yet. I became stronger because of those people. That was the way of life limits the choices you can make, so I will never let myself live just to pay the bills. To pay for school in my house, I needed the money from every shift. Never again. I was working IT support at a Fortune 500 company HQ. I was the guy for anything user-related: laptops, PC hardware, printers, accounts, user shares, backups, smartphones, software, help desk. The list goes on and on. This lady that managed, I don't know what she managed. She had something to do with the stock and stock options and worked next to a VP. She called me screaming that her fax machine broke. And instead of troubleshooting or trying to figure out what was going on, she demanded my presence immediately. I can remember her going, "Get up here now!" on the phone. Now, this was also a few months after I had gotten back from Iraq. I was seriously getting sick of people's extremely unprofessional behavior. I kicked back in my chair, put my feet on my desk, and sat there for 10 entire minutes staring at the clock. I didn't actually have time to F off because I had 20 other things to do, but I was mad and it was so self-satisfying, and I needed to cool down before I threw her fax machine and her out the second story. After that, I picked up the phone, called an old boss, and asked if he was hiring. He was, and I ended up working for him. Those who managed to get their bosses fired, how'd you do it? About 10 years ago, I worked for a well-known company that had business scattered all over the U.S. They finally got to my city, and there was a huge job fair. The lower-level employees were all hired locally, while the supervisors and managers came from other places, either temporarily or permanently. After a few months of showing how good the locals were, many of them were promoted to take the place of the supervisors and managers who were going back home. At first, there was a really great sense of morale. The company paid a lot more than its competitors, had great benefits, and I was making almost twice as much as I had at my last job. Many other people were making the same amount. After a year, I learned that they were opening another location in a different city in my state. I did really well for myself. I asked to be moved, and a few weeks later, I was moved. There was a huge difference in how things were run when I worked there for a year. Things were so different from back home that it was scary. Again, I did very well for myself at my second location, then my home location wanted me to return. So I did with a promotion. What a terrible mistake. There were lots of rumors, scandals, and thefts of all kinds. I asked some old friends, why hasn't anyone told Home Office about this? Everyone in the area was afraid of being fired or retaliated against because this was pretty much the best paying job anyone had ever had. It was a terrible place to work. It made me sad to see how badly my coworkers were being treated because I had grown to love this company. People who worked hard were passed over for promotions in favor of sweet girls. Some supervisors and managers who had just been promoted hired family and friends. There was clear favoritism and harassment. It was awful. I tried my best to make things better as a boss, but it wasn't enough. After being back for half a year, even I felt my job threatened, so I put in my third transfer request to my previous second location. Before I left, it was my mission to talk to everyone who was screwed by everything going on there. My old friends had to trust me to do the right thing for a few weeks over the phone and email. I emailed the CEO and HR at the company. I told people who I was, but I made sure that none of my friends knew who I was. What happened after I left was told to me by my friends. More than half of the management staff were fired or demoted. The store manager was terminated for misconduct. He was sending pictures to the female manager who would receive them. She was fired for that as well, plus racial discrimination. The customer service manager was fired because he stole by giving refunds for less money and putting the difference on his own store gift card. It's almost 10 years since I last worked for the company. I worked for the company in 4 different places across the state and did almost every job they had. I still go there. A lot of my friends still work there. I worked for a company that made computers in a call center. When we were short-staffed or just had too many calls, my manager would sometimes answer them, and every time he did, he was rude to the customers. As a tech support worker, he often seemed like Roy from the IT Crowd, if you've ever seen that show. When someone called who didn't know much about computers, and there were a lot of older people who didn't, he would yell at them and call them stupid because they couldn't figure out where something was, etc. People would finally hang up and he'd write in his support ticket something like user error and move on. After a really bad couple of weeks because of a failed software rollout, I started getting calls from people who said they had talked to a really rude guy and would hang up if they heard his voice. When I got one of these calls and my boss wasn't nearby, I started telling the callers that I would send them a survey linked to the ticket that he had submitted for them, and that was how they could report it, which was the policy at the time. It was empty on this guy's desk when I got to work one day and his computer was gone. I talked to a manager I knew and she told me that there were a lot of strangely negative reviews and his boss decided to listen to some of his calls to figure out what was going on. He called him in and fired him after only a few. He had worked for this company for about 15 years, and because of his length of service, his calls weren't being reviewed, so he took advantage. I never told anyone that I was the one who sent the surveys. At first, I wanted him fired. He was so bad at his job and wouldn't learn it. But as time went on, I decided that it was better to keep him closer rather than further away. I let him dig his own grave. During that time, he, 1, several times called me by the wrong name, 2, said nice things about other technicians because they were ready to break safety rules, 3, didn't answer my emails, 4, helped me with a job but failed to follow safety procedures. It was found out at the end that I refused to do ride-alongs with the techs. I also forgot to exchange my uniform. Okay, I was betting he wouldn't do this so I could wear jeans and polos. In the end, we just had too many issues, and the other guys on the team wanted to speak to his boss privately about him. We found out he lied to his boss during the meeting, which I set up. He was sent back to the team he was on before. After a few days, my last day at work came around. I had to quit to get a better job in a different field while I was still in school. I had the chance to visit his team again and see him there. It was so satisfying to watch him work at that small desk in the corner. Made leaving the company so much sweeter. Years ago, but still a lot of fun. Me, junior programmer, I'll call him me because it's me. Boss, senior manager, project supreme, the kind driving a big fancy car that he cannot afford, wearing expensive clothes that he cannot afford, and eating McDonald's every day for lunch. I'll call him Fat Boss. CEO, cool dude, former programmer. I'll call him CEO. One day, the Fat Boss had a problem with a client because Fat Boss forgot to communicate the request of the client to me. Fat Boss didn't know that I shared an office that morning with the CEO to pair program some things, so when Fat Boss called, I put him on speaker and the CEO was listening in on the conversation. It went something like this. Fat Boss, gee, Dad, I need you to do this thing right now. Me, I'm really busy setting up the servers too. Fat Boss, I don't care. You do this now or I'm gonna tell the CEO to fire your A. Me, still, if the servers aren't configured by the end of the day, everything will be Fat Boss. I'm gonna call CEO and tell him we spoke this morning and you said you would do it and lied to me. Me, CEO, hey, fat boss. Fat boss, oh, hi, I'm having some troubles. CEO, yes, we've been spending the entire morning together. You don't have to come to the office anymore. Are there any personal things you want me to send to your house? Thank you for subscribing, the likes, and comments. We're very happy to see you all in the comments too. Thanks for your support.